Okay, Vaughn, I have your week number 2 sculpt in front of me, and we'll just go through this and have a quick look at what you've done. Okay, so first, kind of overall impressions of the base level is okay. He's quite, well, the anatomy is pretty well constructed. He's all pretty much in place. He's quite angular, though, and probably too angular. Meaning there's kind of a few kind of unnatural transitions in the planes, meaning areas like the chest. I'll have to put a little adjustment layer on. Ooh, you have one higher. You're all the way up to 7. Okay, it's all right. We'll look at this. So in these areas, right, he is defined. There's no doubt he's defined, but I feel like there's quite a precipitous fall off between this bit of the chest and then the rest of the rib cage down here. So maybe it's to do with proportions or volume or something, but this is quite a bit too much, and it feels like it's having a hard time getting out to the shoulder, and that might be because the shoulder is a little bit I won't say too far back, but there's a few little proportional problems in this area. So really, if I look down this way, you can see that this big massive chest muscle needs to be kind of abbreviated a little bit, and when that happens, the arm needs to come in further, right? So this is going to be hard for me to do, because we still need to span the chest muscle out to the arm, but this just needs to come forward in plane, probably to about right. Well, I'll do it with the move brush. I can do it. It would just take a little bit of time. So the arm probably just need to come forward a little bit so that the span or the expanse that it has to cover from chest to humerus is not as great, and I have to keep things proportionate. So I'm just going to give a big kind of move to this. This might not actually work very well with your transpose, because transpose rotations don't really like big moves on the mesh. But I'll turn this off when I get to that. Okay, so that is one thing. Then I'm going to take a little bit of volume out of there. I don't know if that's going to help, but let's just see. It should help the chest anyways. Okay, and the other thing is probably some of this chest, some of this front deltoid needs to be filled in a little bit. That gives kind of a nice kind of convergence between the lower bit of the clavicular section of the pectoralis major and the anterior deltoid as it goes down here, and then all this comes across. Okay, so I think we're a little bit better. I think this stuff needs to fill in, and maybe the chest needs to pop out a little bit on the side, or maybe the shoulders are touched too wide. That might be the case. If you've used your measurements that are provided with the model sheet, just grab it and check the width from the edge of the acromion to edge of the acromion and see if it kind of matches with, see if that holds up as correct distance, and then measure like suprasternal notch to down here and see if your measurements are consistent, because I feel like he's a little bit too wide in the shoulders. Okay, beyond that, I think there's a little bit more form that can go in the lower back. He is quite droopy, and a lot of people have overpronounced his kind of skin folds and things coming off in the lower back, but he still has the characteristic kind of volumes of spinal erectors that we have come to expect, and these in the middle kind of come together a little closer than you have. Okay, so that's kind of it for base modifications. Let's look through your articulations, and the first one looks pretty good, except for, I think I mentioned this in the lecture, that his left scapula really starts to turn quite a bit earlier than it should as far as the scapulohumeral rhythm dictates. So by kind of this angle, he's already rotating his scapula quite a bit, so we have to get a little bit of that going. And I can just show that really quickly on the reference to convince you. I'll just get this out of the way. So what we're looking at is this being the spine of the scapula. I'll just move yours over. So actually this is probably going like that. And then already the teres major is way over here. So it's down to be something like that. Okay, that's a little messy what I've just done, but I just want to be schematic about the angles that are associated with that. Okay, moving up to the next stage. I think he gets a little wide through there. Maybe not. Maybe it's just that everything has gone very planar in here. So I don't know if this was technical difficulties with layers or if it's just the sculpt. But everything has gone very flat through the back of the deltoid. So that probably needs to be revisited a little bit. You know, just kind of how much does the rear deltoid pop over, and kind of this, and does this stand up at all? Where's the muscles coming off? A lot of things happening there, and yours has gone into very shallow relief. You know, when really these the rear deltoids take up, give a lot of depth and form, and even the infraspinatus can create a little convexity there. You know, so really closely observe those sorts of things. Okay, and then we'll just move through the last two and see how they are. I've looked at them already, and they're pretty good. I just feel like they're going too high. Let me get rid of that. They're going too high, meaning his shoulders are really lifting out here, and this needs a good tuck in, right? These have a big flare, but they need to be something more like this. Remember, we've got armpit behind the chest, the pectoral muscles in this pose. So we're going to dig in there a little bit and dig in there. Okay, then all this has to transition out to bicep coming in. Biceps. Okay, and then finally to 180 degrees. This looks okay. He needs serratus anterior. Doesn't have any serratus anterior. That's a big miss, not putting any serratus anterior in. Can't just leave an entire muscle group out. That's not good. So this is the one that's in line with the fifth rib. Then we have sixth, seventh. Those are kind of his two really pronounced digits that we've become familiar with. But in this view, the scapula looks pretty good. You've paid pretty good attention to the tension up here and the rotation. All this kind of looks pretty tight. Just be really careful about where the borders of the tail of the trapezius go, because they kind of go a little wider than I think you've given them credit for. Okay, and again, I think that probably your acromion has lifted way too high on either side. If we look where relative to kind of the stump of the neck, they're really, really tall, right? So that could all probably stand to move down a little bit, and we can push some of these back in a little bit. It's not quite that flared. Okay, and probably do with a little extra volume in here. But overall, I think this is pretty successful, what you've done with the scapula in the back, and you've attended to a lot of the right things with the rotation of the clavicles that we talked about. So well done. And that's it. I hope that was kind of broadly useful. A few small things, a few big things, but in general, I think you hit the main points of the exercise, and I hope you learned something. Thanks very much.